And then we come to The Raven. Poe finally became successful with his poem The Raven, which he published in 1845. But amazingly, he only earned $9 for it. Basically, Graham's magazine declined to publish the poem, and the owner of the magazine offered Poe $15 as charity because Poe literally had nothing to eat at that time. But later he was able to sell it to the American Review, which paid him $9 for the poem. We will speak about this poem in depth in class, hopefully. Then at the same time, Victoria, Poe's wife, started getting very ill, and finally she died in 1847, leaving Poe heartbroken. She died of consumption, which was a very common disease at the time. Poe lost everything he had earned that far, and he started drinking heavily. For example, one day in 1849, he was found on the streets of Baltimore in delirium tremens, basically, because he was wearing somebody else's clothes. He couldn't explain why and how it came to that. And shortly after, he was in a hospital and he died. He was buried in a small unmarked grave in Baltimore. The burial and the funeral was very modest. Only 3 people attended the funeral. And later on, when the Americans decided that Poe was actually a great American author, they decided to move his body to another location in the cemetery so that a great monument could be erected. But surprise, surprise, when they exhumed the body, they found that the body in that grave was taller than Poe's body. Poe was a very short man, only 173 centimeters tall, whereas the body that was exhumed was taller and it was buried in military uniform. Poe was actually buried in his civilian clothes. So it remains a mystery whose body is now beneath the great monument that was erected in Baltimore Cemetery. I think this is something that's described as the last jest on Poe's part because he was such a lover of the macabre. To sum this all up, the main topic that Poe dealt with was madness in its various sorts. He dealt with psychology, with our inner selves. His narrators are always unnamed, and they are usually affected either by their madness or by their alcoholism, which leads us to believe that he invested some of his own personality into his narrators. And for Poe, opium was a means of getting peace. Again, this is a controversial idea. One topic that he insisted upon in his poetry especially is the death of a young bride, which can freeze the beauty of a young corpse. And this is clearly seen, for example, in The Raven as well, but in many other poems. I will speak about poetry in a separate video. Let me just tell you something about his short stories. If I were to choose which I prefer, I would definitely say that I prefer Poe's tales to his poetry because they are written in such a specific style that appeals to people who love Gothic and horror and the macabre. Some of these I have already mentioned, such as Manuscript in a Bottle, then The Murders in the Rue Morgue, the first detective story, The Purloined Letter, for example, which, let me go to my next slide so that you can see, is significant since it sparked a postmodern debate in the 20th century between Jacques Lacan and Jacques Derrida and Barbara Johnson. So this was something that inspires postmodernism. It's about a stolen letter, so the letter becomes the main topic of the 20th century literary criticism. I'm not that into postmodernism, I have to admit, but if you are, then you should probably read this particular story and maybe read the reviews. What they said is that the letter should be seen, this was said by Barbara Johnson, should be seen as a phallus that the queen does not have. So I'm not sure I like that interpretation. Then some of his other stories, such as The Gold Bug. I already mentioned The Gold Bug as the precursor to the modern detective story. Then the two stories we are going to read, The Black Cat and The Fall of the House of Usher. Then these three, The Mask of the Red Death, The Pit and the Pendulum, and The Telltale Heart. Of all these, my personal favorites are the latter two, The Pit and the Pendulum, and The Telltale Heart. But let's say something about The Mask of the Red Death. It's also interesting because it's gothic, like The Fall of the House of Usher. It features a castle in which the main character, Prince Prospero, and Prospero is also the name of the main character from Shakespeare's The Tempest. This is not a coincidence, of course. He hides with his people in a castle from the deadly plague, the Red Plague. And this castle where they're hiding is contains 7 rooms. Every room is of different color. One room is especially important. It is a black room with red scarlet windows because when you see the description, it resembles a skull. And one day, Prince Prospero decides to throw a masquerade ball, and suddenly a disguised figure appears, and this figure is dressed as the Red Plague. Later on, it's discovered that the costume within is hollow. There is nothing in it, so this is basically a ghost. And everybody who comes in contact with this mysterious figure wearing the mask of the Red Death dies. So everybody will die in this story. Modern readings say that this story is an allegory about death, claiming that we all have to die. And I think this is consistent with what Poe was trying to say. The Pit and the Pendulum, the one that I singled out as one of my favorites, is unlike all the other Poe stories, quite realistic in its description of the way this person feels as he's awaiting death. It is about a torture of a prisoner during the Spanish Inquisition. And in order for you to understand what goes on in the story, let me show you this image. So the prisoner is bound, and this pendulum, slowly hanging left and right, is descending upon this prisoner really, really slowly. And we can hear, based on Poe's description, the sounds that the pendulum makes. And we can hear the prisoner's thoughts and how he's trying to escape, but he is bound very tightly, so he cannot escape. He does escape at the end because the rats are going to chew through his ropes. But everything prior to that is pretty scary, and we can easily identify with the mind of this narrator. This is one excerpt from The Pit and the Pendulum, so let me read it. I had swooned, but still will not say that all of consciousness was lost. What of it there remained, I will not attempt to define, or even to describe, yet all was not lost. In the deepest slumber, no, in delirium, no, in a swoon, no, in death, no, even in the grave, all is not lost. Else there is no immortality for man. Arousing from the most profound of slumbers, we break the gossamer web of some dream, yet in a second afterward, so frail may that web have been, we remember not that we have dreamed. I hope you remember from my previous video that dreams were a great inspiration for Poe, and here he also describes our lives as dreams. This word gossamer he frequently uses. Ova reč znači paučinasta, kao paučinasta mreža snova koja može tako lako da se prekine jer se vrlo lako probudimo iz sna i vrlo često nakon 2-3 sekunde zaboravimo šta smo sanjali. Dakle, to je poenta ovoga, that this prisoner thought everything was a dream that he experienced, but he was not sure whether that's the case. And finally, I don't have a slide for that. One of my favorite stories is The Telltale Heart. Preveli bismo ga kao izdajničko srce. Again, we have a narrator who has a split personality, who kills a man, a very old man, simply because his eye, his blue eye with a film over it, annoys the narrator. And this is the motive for this murder. After the murder, the narrator dismembers the body and he buries the corpse under the floor in his own room. After some time, he starts hearing a very low, dull sound coming from beneath the floor. And he thinks what he can hear is the beating of that dead man's heart. Of course, this leads to his confession because his guilty conscience has to come through. And this story is both realistic but also very psychological in that it describes the effect of our conscience on what we do later in life. I singled out The Black Cat for us to read because I think this is one of the easier tales to read. Again, I'm trying to scare you into reading Poe, like I did with Irving, but you saw that if we manage to read Washington Irving, we will manage with Poe. But The Black Cat is easy to analyze, and its style is not that complicated. It's based on this idea that all black cats are witches in disguise. This is what the unnamed narrator uses as his excuse for killing his cat and later his wife. Let me show you one excerpt from the story. I grew day by day more moody, more irritable, more regardless of the feelings of others. I suffered myself to use intemperate language to my wife. At length, I even offered her personal violence. My pets, of course, were made to feel the change in my disposition. I not only neglected but ill-used them. For Pluto, however, I still retained sufficient regard to restrain me from maltreating him, as I made no scruple of maltreating the rabbits, the monkey, or even the dog, when by accident or through affection they came in my way. But my disease grew upon me. For what disease is like alcohol? And at length even Pluto, who was now becoming old and consequently somewhat peevish, even Pluto began to experience the effects of my ill temper. We will read excerpts from The Black Cat in class, but here you can see that the narrator blames his alcoholism for what he's about to do, and that is, first, he's going to take out the cat's eye out of his socket with a penknife, and then he's going to hang the cat in the yard. It's quite morbid. The style of the story is confessional, and it reminds me of another excellent book, and this is The Stranger by Albert Camus, which begins like this. Mother died today, or maybe yesterday, I can't be sure. What a fantastic first sentence for a novel. I'm always thrilled to read this. And just compare it to Poe's beginning of The Black Cat. But tomorrow I die, and today I would unburden my soul. So both the narrator of The Stranger and The Black Cat want to confess something to us, the readers, in such a way that we can maybe identify with them. And finally, let me end this part about Poe with another quote from The Black Cat, which I find to be a bit more difficult. There is something in the unselfish and self-sacrificing love of a brute which goes directly to the heart of him who has had frequent occasion to test the paltry friendship and gossamer fidelity of mere man. I'm not sure you're not here to ask you whether you understand a word of what he's saying, but I hope that we can analyze and really read closely these parts in class and try to understand why Poe is considered to be the greatest American author of the 19th century.